U.S. Army for me and my daughter, and a lady that had come in from Washington to help was telling this gentleman, and I still remember it happened in Chattanooga, so it's probably 1996 or 7 when Gigi wanted to get in. And this gentleman in an officer uniform, high ranking, I don't know, but just in the local division, had the woman tell him to shut up and sit down. He didn't know what he was talking about, and he was really taking offense to it because she was from accounting somewhere in Washington, D.C., but he explained to her that my clearance was much higher than he ever heard of, because he was telling me he was ignorant to the fact that he was not privileged to the information. That's all. So him, it didn't exist in his reality, even though he was in the United States Army. But he was not privileged to even know about certain clearance levels. She, on the other hand, was in general accounting or in the accounting office out of D.C., and a lot of those people think even if you say you don't have it on a paper trail with your orders or your temporary duty orders, which a lot of us get, including me, is the fact that there's a lot of your TDYs can or cannot be traced or may not say what you're actually doing for those that are in financial affairs or in Office of Personnel Management.
Well, that's intentional. They usually tell you where to go.
Tell the people what a TDI is.
Okay, wait a minute. What Ahmed, you talk, and then Ken, you talk, because y'all talk together, and I didn't get to hear it. So.
I said they just TD orders just tell you where to go and to report it. They don't tell you what you're up to.
There you go.
Okay,
and
that's all I wanted.
Sometimes you can't find those, Ken. Go ahead. You probably have intel on that too. What is it?
No, he answered the question about, you said the TDY, and I wanted to be sure that everybody knew what that was.
Yeah, it's TDY is what they say, but it's temporary duty. And when I looked it up, being that I was in personnel and information security or had investigations as my background, I was always curious to know what the acronyms were. So I would look that up, but Office of Personnel Management, but we had the Secretary of Navy. I covered DOD and Department of Navy, but I had to train joint, so that's why I got to wear the various uniforms. But depending on what location or what I was assigned to, it depends on the uniform. So I can confirm that I've worn all the uniforms except the Coast Guard that I'm aware of. So
let me add,
go ahead.
A lot of people don't realize what you just said, but I can tell you that classes that I took in aviation, et cetera, stuff, we would have people that would come in with maybe a captain's bars on their uniform and everything, and then later and find out that they're only just a staff sergeant or master sergeant. But they were authorized to wear a higher ranking uniform or a different branch of military uniform than what we were, because that was the group that they were speaking to, us, and that's why they were able to maintain the control and the secrecy. So, yeah, this, even in my little small world of going through the Marine Corps. So I understand exactly what you're talking about, because it's a fact. It's true.
I was shocked when I was given different uniforms and different bars, and once I was working in the field as a corpsman, but I was actually in there undercover as an investigator, which was most of the time, I think.
Did you ever outrank me? Did you ever outrank me? Did you ever outrank me?
I don't know. I don't ever remember you being in a uniform around me, Ken, only at NASA.
Okay. Okay.
But you would have outranked me because I was a teenager then working for ACAR as public relations, or I had done my clearance levels in 67, so I already had my clearance, but I was told I had to have a minimum of secret just to go pick up my husband inside NASA as a NASA employee, since he worked for the typing pool, or he was the supervisor. And so they had to clear me, which I didn't understand. And then I remember them having me re-clear within the next 2 or 3 years, because I signed them when I was 16, and then I had to sign them again, and I think it was 72, so it must have been 5 years later, right? Do you remember how often you had to do paperwork for NASA?
Oh, I thought it was like every 4 years. But I was going to say, when we would have classes and teach classes and be involved for the astronauts to learn the various systems within the spacecraft that we were in, they had to know that we were a certain rank, such as a not rank, but I should say clearance, like top secret or whatever the lower ones were, because then the astronauts couldn't speak openly, and ask questions that they wouldn't know the answers to, unless they knew that we were, say, secret clearance or a top secret.
So we need to clarify that folks, when we talk in the Allied Command Organization, we're going to do our best with our first-hand information, being that we are military or we're military, but we'll be more than happy to explain that your clearance levels are not your officer enlisted levels, are your GS 1 through whatever it is, 18 or maybe 19, I don't even know, 23. Dr. Rick Miller was in as well, and but he was a civilian, and so civilians have one, they can be wage grade, general service, something else, I've forgotten. But so we can discuss all that, but we need to be up on what the latest is. We were in it a long time ago. Go ahead, Ken.
No, my boss just walked in and brought me in some pizza, so I get to eat while you're talking.
Yeah, and your wife worked as a civilian for Boeing, did she not? She hasn't.
Yes,
she's worked.
She retired from the Boeing company. She was
she's
the
a retired Boeing.
Yep.
Go ahead.
She retired. She was the administrative assistant to the vice president of the Boeing division for the solar power systems that were designed. And so I came and swept her off her feet and took her down to Vandenberg, and then we got married.
That's a beautiful story. All right, Tommy, your turn.
All right, I'm just going to jump back a little bit. All right. I know you know the word Chernobyl, Fukushima. Both of them are still affecting the ocean greatly. Unless the aliens decide to help us with that, we're going to be in serious trouble. But what I wanted to say about that, I've been watching the earthquakes for the past 100 years, the past 10 years versus the past 5 years. It has quadrupled. I mean, if you look at the charts from the 1900s to the 50s to what it was to the 75 to the 200, but the past 5 and 10 years has escalated to maximum places, especially Alaska, the islands around Australia, Russia and Japan. Japan's having super big earthquakes every other week now, and so is Russia. So there's something serious going on, but I will get back to the radiation. It's killing the whales and dolphins in super large numbers for the past 5 years. Now, 150 died last week. Last month, 450 died off in New Zealand. The ocean's getting contaminated. If an alien race doesn't decide to come down here and purify the ocean, there won't be any ocean. That will actually wipe out Japan and a couple of countries as well. So I look at facts and I say, if anybody wants to help us, if any alien race can, that's where they really need to start. And I dealt with a woman here, worked with Jacques Cousteau, and she was close to Jacques Cousteau's grandson. And he was testing the radiation as far as it went. And whatever they said on TV and wherever it went was ridiculous. Because like you said, there's radioactive things in the stores where you can test your food now even. But there's 5 grades of radiation. Only a couple $1,000 Geiger counter could detect for the 5th band of radiation. I mean, every milk in the United States is radioactive. All the foods that they're giving us are pretty radioactive, but the amount of decimals they're allowed to expose it to is limited to the quote, what's the level that we can withstand. That's why I'm saying the alien races know that what's happening to the planet,
right.
Or they could have stopped that.
Fukushima, they raised up the acceptable limit of allowance too. By the way, and don't know that.
Well, that's what they do when they know they can't do it. Sorry, go ahead.
If you go back and check 30 years ago, when they talked about earthquakes and the strength of the earthquake, they totally changed and modified that to where we don't. Oh, well, that wasn't as bad as we thought. When you're moving in levels of 10 times greater times 10 times greater, we were having some pretty severe earthquakes, but it didn't. They did not say it's only 0.6 on the Richter scale. Well, my goodness, that would have been. I'm not sure, and probably somebody can correct me on that. 0.6 would probably have put it about like 1.2 on the Richter scale. So
what I want to say on that, I prophesized the last 3 major earthquakes in the past year. all right, and they were all 0.7.2s. I just said there's going to be one bet bigger than a 7.2, bet bigger than a 7.5, so we had an 8.4 2 weeks ago. I predict by the next year we will have a 9.0, which will do a serious disaster to the planet. I don't know if you know about Tibet and these places that had the super big earthquakes. I mean, Alaska's having earthquakes of 5 and 6s every other couple of weeks now. They never had them that big for the longest time. Yeah, they have 100 a day, but they're all 2.1, 1.2, 3.2, but nothing higher than that. The same as Russia's having super big earthquakes.
Yep. Now
Right.
you know why I
Now,
live a mile high. Now you
Right,
know
well-
why I live a mile high, away from the ocean, about
Well,
500 miles. Go.
I live on the biggest mountain on the planet. Hawaii
Which
is
one?
the biggest mountain.
Yeah, but
Hawaii-
it ain't that
Hawaii.
off the water level.
It's just that most of the island's underwater, but it is the biggest
Right.
mountain on the planet.
If
And
they
if
count
water,
it from the bottom of the ocean.
well, the other thing is, if you go by water level, if the water lowers and raises, there's always the same amount of water on the planet. So I feel if land goes down, land comes up, and the Hawaiian people believe this island will come up. So yeah, there's belief systems on all that, but I look at the facts. I look at what's happening around the planet, and the Ring of Fire is on fire, and it's going to be super destructive, which it's becoming every day because I watch it every day. Sure, they don't list what's happening in Australia. The biggest army base on the planet is in the top part of Australia, which is next to all those islands getting hit by the super big earthquakes. So, I mean, I've been researching this for 15 years already now, and quoting and taking pictures of the charts of what's happening. And I also feel alien races know what's happening. They have to. So whether they want certain things, I feel they're creating their reality so that they can live here in the way that they want to. Just my viewpoint.
Oh, yeah, and someday, TJ, I'd like to have you record this down. If we can get some people on to tell us really what all has been going on down in Antarctica and why Buzz got so sick and they got him out of there. There's a whole bunch of some great information that I think we need to get out to the public. And if we get the right sources, that would be awesome. I've been privy to some of the information, but not enough that I could talk long enough to sound like I had any brains at all. But I've been dealing with the folks.
Corey Goody and David Wilcox are going to be doing 2 conferences on that in the next couple months.
Okay.
If you want to hear more of what they perceive and what they were shown, Corey Good says a lot of it he experienced. So it's up to whether you want to believe him or not, because nobody has proof. Nobody showed anything about what's really happened. Sure, shapes in the snow and things like that. I have a picture of footprints in the snow that an alien made that my friend just took while he was walking past them. She got a picture of it walking by. But I can't release those pictures yet. Bob Dean said no. So there's a lot of things happening that's out there that I don't know if people are really ready to see all the facts that are important. I mean, if they're coming here to help us, everybody wants to hear that. If they're going to help us do something good, yes. But if they want food, why would they come here if they wanted food, and what food would they take?
Just don't invite me for dinner and I'm part of the plate.
Who has to, somebody can take it.
Yeah, nobody else wants to jump in on that last one, and I apologize
Is TJ
for that.
still there? TJ, or did you disappear?
And she may
Are
be
we
just
on?
checking on us.
You know, as far as I know, it's on.
We got another
I'm
15
here.
minutes.
Okay,
I'm here.
all right.
Okay. I just had to find the right button, and I was trying. I'm running the. Well, you know what we're doing here. We've got 15 minutes left, guys. You know, each of us comes to this reality at this moment in time and recreate. So I would like to just go with we're co-creators with whatever we bring for the week on Fridays to this show. And it will be what it will be. And if anybody would like to find out, they can come and listen to the archive. But I do want people to know, because we missed our hour break to talk about things like that, but is that I pay Spreaker to put it up on YouTube for us, and I pay SoundCloud, unlimited $16 a month now, just for these shows to be archived on more than just Blog Talk. But Blog Talk for 7 years, I've paid $40 a month, $39.99,